I'm back here in my swampy backyard, and I have taken my son's Easter basket. When I say that I harvest in a basket a lot, this is the basket I'm talking about. It is not nearly big enough for the amount of harvest we have, but it should work for what I'm doing today. Now, this is the area where we use the deer fencing to fence in and let our birds kind of range. You can see where everything's been, I guess, stamped down and mowed down and everything else. But it's also really muddy because it's been rainy. But there's still some stuff back here that I did not plant that grows wild on its own that I want to harvest, and that is these onions. When I was younger, we used to go out and grab the onions that grew wild along the riverbanks where my mom used to live, and it was so much fun. It really was. We would get one of those radio flyer wagons and just harvest a ton of them. Now, these onions are really cool because even though they're wild, you can grow them yourself, and here's how. So what happens is the top of these onions flower like this. They flower, and then these are little onion bulbs that form. They get pollinated, and look at this. They form these little baby onions, and each of these will grow a stem, and they will literally just fall off. Boop, 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 boop. Like this, and grow into their own onion plants. And here's kind of like what they look like. They look like the little baby onions. You can plant these, guys. You can grow your own onions, and each plant produces quite a bit of them. Also, these are edible. How great is that? Now, be very careful because there are some plants that kind of look like them. And I would never be brave enough at this point in my life to harvest wild garlic or garlic chives that I didn't grow myself, because there are poisonous plants that mimic that garlic, and that is scary for me. I'm not sure that I'm quite educated enough on those variety of wild plants in order to do it, but I do know that these are edible and that they are safe to eat. And so I'm all for it. This area is either going to get mowed down by our birds, and they don't really care for the onion plants. They usually just kind of stomp on them. Or my husband's going to come through eventually and weed eat everything. Because it just gets so tall and swampy, and it's really hard for it to dry out even when it starts to get really hot because of how swampy it is. And we don't need any more mosquitoes than we already have right now. So that being said, you can harvest, and it's really muddy. You can actually see just what I mean by we have clay soil. I mean, we do, and it is a muddy mess. It's either dry and cracking during the summer or just a complete mess during what we like to call as rainy season or muddy season. And since it is wet and muddy, it's really easy to harvest the bulbs. Now, the bulbs don't get very large. This is about it. They do get a little bit bigger, and sometimes they grow together, but that's all you have to do. Now, when I was younger, I used to think, if I don't get the whole bulb, it's a waste, but it's not. All of the greenery is edible, so it's absolutely not a waste if you don't manage to get the bulb. And sometimes you cannot get the bulb because of how thick the clay soil is. So I'm literally just gathering up these onions and putting them in my basket, and then I'll go inside and prepare them, even freezing them, and you can probably dehydrate them too. I just find that not a lot of the onion family, especially the greens, dehydrate well. Now, I did get this type of chive. I think it's the polyvert chive, which is supposed to grow a little better and be better at preserving. I've tried freezing chives before. It's really weird when they defrost and get cooked. I almost feel like they're a little woody. Look at the roots on this one. So you see these long roots? That's why they do so well. They can really get nutrients out of the clay soil, and a lot of times people think clay soil doesn't have nutrients in it. It does. It really does have a lot of nutrients. It just gets so compacted though. So all my garden beds are actually open to the clay soil, so the roots of, say, like okra that have a nice taproot on them can easily get down into the clay. All the compost on top is simply to add more nutrients and to mulch in the soil. That is not an onion. To mulch in the soil and keep everything from getting just completely dried out in the summer. It saves water and time. So that's what I mean. They're not always going to come out with a bulb. It doesn't matter. That's all edible. Look at this. Isn't that lovely? One of my favorite things isn't just these wild onions. It's the flowers off of chives. Those are lovely. And these, I mean, the smell of onions, I love it. I love when people mow their grass during the summer and all you can smell is that strong wild onion smell. Not everyone likes that. My kids think it's overwhelming, even though they love eating onions. And it can be. And you see just the sheer amount of onions in this small space, which is why it's so overwhelming. You have to be careful, because sometimes when you're getting onions, here's the 2 onions, you get like these flowers. If you were to eat those would make you sick, and they're kind of growing around the onions. You have to be careful to not grab the wrong flowers if something's growing in a bunch. It's just kind of how there's grass growing. I don't want to grab these onions. I'm actually going to throw them to the back, because look at this. This ivy plant growing right next to it. Last thing we want is, with it kind of them both blowing around in the wind, for it to rub that and get that urushiol. That's the chemical in poison ivy, poison oak, that actually leaves a rash on your skin and causes such a severe allergic reaction. And even worse, it's a delayed reaction. Can you imagine eating a food that's touched that and you swallow it and then you have either an immediate or a delayed reaction? That's really dangerous and scary. So I want to say be very cautious, and if you're in an area that does have these plants, watch out, you know, because look at them growing all back here. No thank you. So I'm always trying to be careful about things like that. I really do. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan. You can eat the little seedlings on top. I don't know what exactly you would call them, but I'm not the biggest fan of those. At least not when they have the flowers attached. They're pretty strong, I have to say. But so I usually take the flowers off. I'll keep the seed part, the little baby onion bulbs, and eat the rest of them. Now, if they are too woody, then I'll figure something out. Sometimes my rabbits really like them. But to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how good onions are for a rabbit's health. That's something I've yet to discover. I have heard people saying that rabbits should not eat sweet potatoes because that can make them sick. And I still, when I was showing rabbits, had people that dehydrated sweet potatoes just to feed to their rabbits. So I'm definitely interested in finding more out about why sweet potatoes aren't good for rabbits. And obviously we don't want to feed our rabbits anything that's bad for them. Now, while our rabbits are Rexes, they are a meat breed, we have not bred them ever. We don't even have a male rabbit. They are literally pet rabbits. We have talked about getting a buck, but regardless, those two are staying with us. My sons take good care of them. They love them. They come inside and hang out on our couch. They play in the boys' rooms. They get to range with the ducks and geese in the yard. Now, we do have to watch them because those rabbits do like to fight. Female rabbits are quite territorial. You might be surprised just how territorial they can be. So that's something we always think about and consider, because we don't always want them hanging out with each other because they get so cranky, and we don't want them causing harm to each other. Look at that. Sheesh. It's quite a bit in one little clump. Isn't that lovely? And all that would just go to waste in our backyard. an area that's quite swampy where we haven't done anything with other than, you know, maybe store some stuff or let the animals come hang out back here. You can see there's like poison ivies and all of that growing back here because it really is kind of an untouched area. See that? Has a staircase where we store stuff. My husband has all kinds of nifty things that he enjoys and loves. So you see there's even some like well over here all mixed into these grasses. And all of that. They're just everywhere. I don't really want to get too much into here. So let me show this. This area, it's actually the right-of-way. I tell you we're in the city and they're supposed to maintain this and people will come out and they'll just stare out and walk off. You know, and so we slowly started kind of clearing it out when we bought this house. Now, our house is not gorgeous, guys. It was a fixer-upper. The floors were falling through and everything else. Seeing how much houses are worth now in my area, I'm really glad I bought it when I did. Because we are not in the type of debt other people are to get here. And all it's going to take is a lot of manual labor, to be honest. Look at this. Sweat equity. That's what a lot of people call it nowadays. So, hi Shadow! My husband's just kind of storing some truck tires here. Shadow's coming to see what I'm up to. And so this all, you can see, look at that, poison oak, everything. We have poison oak, poison sumac, poison ivy. It's all growing back here. And so this will have to be cleared out. Some of it is so much that it's killing the trees. And over time we have cleared it out some. But it's kind of difficult because, for one, all of the plants, and my husband and I both have some pretty serious rashes from it. And with my lupus, I have scarring on my arms, actually in some areas right in here. I don't know how well you can see it through the camera. That's actually because a couple of years ago I broke out in a rash and it was a delayed reaction. It took about 48 hours for it to show up, and when I did, it was so severe that it scarred my arms and it was awful. It was definitely not an experience that I like, especially with already having such a reaction to the summer heat. It's just awful. And actually when I went to the rheumatologist this week, she did comment on how I have some weird mottling to my skin, and that's actually from the lupus. So we're working on getting a bunch of tests run right now so that we can see a better plan of action and treatment, because as you know, I love the outdoors and I love being able to grow my own food. So enough about that. If you guys are interested in more what it's like to kind of garden and all of that when you have something like this going on, let me know, because there are some tips and tricks from the way you dress, protection, gardening at certain times to kind of think about. That's why I say rest is so important. And also look at this. So we have all of these barrels. This one's full of water because it's been raining. We have all of these barrels. My husband got them from work. They are food grade. And so I really want to try out doing some of the cracky method in these 55-gallon barrels. We do have all of the basically chemicals, minerals and everything, water soluble, that we need. And I think it's going to be really fun to try out. I did try and I made little videos about it. Showing why it's not a good idea to use non-water soluble chemicals in the cracky method and why it doesn't work. So you can always check that out. But it's definitely something we want to try. I think that's going to be more my husband's thing. He's into like aquaponics and hydroponics, and I still don't 100% grasp the concept because I just don't have the knowledge that he has on the subject. I am more focused on like soil health and things, and I don't have a problem with hydroponics or aquaponics. I think they are both absolutely cool and amazing and fascinating. So I think those videos are going to be a lot of me just repeating what he tells me and me videoing him doing the work. Those should be interesting. He's not big, I don't know if you noticed, he's not big on camera or anything else. You sometimes hear him in the videos. I'll show some of the stuff he's working on, but he's actually fairly introverted. And so here's another one of these barrels, and this one actually has these on it. So these can be unscrewed. There's a special tool you can get because they're hard for me to unscrew. And I was thinking putting a little pot down in each one. My husband actually got some net pots. They are a little small, but we'll see how they work. That's, like I said, that's his thing. I have no idea what I'm doing. And here it is. Look at all this. So this is actually a lot. We clear out a lot of this. You know, this is technically supposed to be a right-of-way and drainage area. It's a mess. So in order to really properly put up our back fence and close this in, we're gonna have to clear out some of this. There are so many dead trees, and some have fallen. Some have fallen, and we've taken some down over time because the amount of water that gets back here just kind of rots them out. And look at this. Let me show you this. Just for me stepping here, I stepped down and the water's welling up from the ground. So I study at Arkansas State University, and I was up there working at the hospital, and I was so amazed by the amount of I guess not just underground storm shelters, but like basements and cellars, and the fact that their water table, they had to drill like 700 and something feet down. And I was like, I don't get it. And they were like, well, why don't y'all have basements? And this is why, guys, this is why. We're at the water table. Like, if I dig down several inches into the driest part of my yard, water will fill up that area. We would drown. That's why when that big storm came through in like the early 1900s in Galveston, Texas, there's like 1901, I think, was a massive hurricane. More people drowned than just got smashed because people back then had basements. You know, when people migrated over here, they came from other countries and even from the northern states that didn't realize how high the water table was. They built these basements, and when they tried to survive storms, it flooded, really hurting and drowning people. So our water table is like ridiculously high, is the moral of the story. I'm just have a fascination with some history. You know, it really is different. So I think that's important to note because that does influence how we do things here. And also why my house is kind of up a little higher instead of on the ground. It's actually up on cement blocks. And whenever we had that really bad Hurricane Harvey in 2017, my house did not flood because it's 2 feet off the ground. And I honestly think that's contributed to the amount of, I guess, elevation difference in my yard. My backyard has this huge area where it holds water, and I think it's because it was once, you know, the right-of-way. So you can see where the trees are kind of falling down and everything else. I'm not even going to bother with this area. I don't care if there are onions in it. No, thank you. But while I was back here harvesting these little onions, I wanted to show you all of that. I thought it was really cool and interesting. Hey, Shadow, what you up to, buddy? Are you ready to go inside? You ready to go inside? He rarely lets me pet him when we're outside, and then when we go inside, I'll see me post pictures and stuff because he'll either lay in my bed, lay in my lap, lay on my arm while I'm doing stuff. It's so cute. What are you doing? Are you playing with the grass? Silly goose. Look, here's another onion, but I'm gonna leave it. I have quite a bit. You can kind of see just how many it is. So that's about it. I'm really going to wash these off and then cut them all up, and then you see I'm not gonna eat the flowers, but you can eat these right here, and these are really strong and pungent, just warning you now. So that's it. This is our harvest of kind of wild onions, and I'm sure there's a specific name for them. I just don't know exactly what it is. They kind of remind me of the Egyptian walking onions, but I don't think that's the exact name of these. So if you actually know, I might try Googling it, but I really don't want to because sometimes Google is misleading. It leads me astray and I get things wrong. So thank you guys for kind of hanging out with me and watching me randomly harvest onions from my backyard and show all the craziness going on back here. I will be excited when we get some of this cleared out and I can fence in the whole yard and allow the ducks and geese to have more room, but also let our dog play and everything else. And then over time we want to kind of build this up and dig a area back here, like basically a deep ditch to hold water to prevent flooding. So that's going to be a whole new video, something totally different that's probably going to require a lot of work, a tractor, a lot of clearing. So I'm excited to take you guys on that journey. Once again, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you have a great day.